if your reaction to the ending of It's Not Me, It's My Basement was, "What?" then sit down and pay attention, because I'm about to tell you a not exactly concrete explanation of that ending. Before we get started, please go play It's Not Me, It's My Basement. It is an amazing game with a great story, and if you don't want to play it, then I have an entire gameplay of it on my channel for you to watch. Also, subscribe while you're here. It'll make me very happy. But now, let's get into why you came here. What the heck does this game mean? I have 3 theories on the story of the game, the third of which being my personal favorite, so stick around to hear that one. First theory. There are literal monsters in the basement. Okay, so this theory is pretty cut dry. It is essentially that the story that is presented to you is true and that there are literal shape-shifting monsters that killed Embry's parents in their basement. Now I know this seems like a kinda anticlimactic explanation, but there are signs to this being just the case. Like the weird black tentacles in the toy box and the loud roars we hear each time we feed the monsters. And with them being shapeshifters, it makes the scene with the doppelganger Embry make sense, as the monster just transformed to look like the Embry to trick them. But also it was stated that that part of the story was a nightmare and we never actually see the monsters. But we did get to see them speak to Embry through the door using their parents' voices and theirs as well. But then again, there's not much to say about this theory, so we're just gonna move on. Second theory. Embry killed their parents. Hold on, I know this sounds like a stretch, but hear me out here. This theory gives us both a solid case of what happened to Embry's parents and what the monsters are. This theory states that Embry has some kind of alter self that's psychopathic in nature, that self being the one we see in the basement, and that this split self killed Embry's parents and hid them in the basement, and that the parents' bodies and split self are the monsters. Now I know that sounds kind of far out, but it does kind of make sense. Number 1, it explains the second Embry in the basement, and number 2, it gives meaning to the title of the game, saying, "It's not me, it's my basement," alluding that it wasn't them who actually killed their parents, rather their basement split self. Also, we can see that there is a red spot on Embry's outfit, which was said to be paint, but could actually be the blood of their parents. Now, there are some flaws with this theory, one being that Embry says that they never saw their parents die, yet heard that it sounded like they were being eaten by monsters. Now, I'm not sure if this other self would be like a switch, and once flicked, they have complete control over the body, and the other part lays dormant not knowing what's happening outside, and that when the other self killed Embry's parents, this is what happened. But even if that was what happened, Embry said they heard their parents die. And 2, how would Embry contain something that's in her head in the basement? Well, maybe only that part of them awakens when they see their parents, and since they are in the basement, there was no need for the other self to show. But this theory also brings up the question, why feed the monsters? Well, maybe Embry feels as though they need to feed themselves to keep their bloodlust satiated, but I'm not really sure. This theory could also apply to our favorite doctor, Dr. D-Light, and that Embry actually did intentionally kill him by throwing him down the stairs, and that the other self made Embry see it as if it were an accident, basically tricking them into seeing things when they're in control and killing Delight. But that's enough of this theory. On to the next one. Third theory. Embry is traumatized. This theory says that Embry did not kill their parents, but rather feels responsible for it and punishes themselves with feeding the basement. Embry's parents died possibly by falling down the basement stairs, and Embry overheard them falling and compared it to the sounds of a monster. But why would Embry feel responsible? Well, people usually have unexplainable instances of guilt over situations they have no control over. Maybe they felt like they could have prevented it somehow. But this also makes us wonder why they would feed the monsters. Well, maybe these monsters represent depression, which would explain why the monsters said, "Do you really hate yourself this much?" And this ritual of feeding these monsters is actually them trying to cope with the loss of their parents by pretending they're still alive and feeding them in the basement. But eventually, the monsters grow too strong after the death of Dr. D-Light, and they have to go face their fears directly at the end of the game. Now, like the other theories, this does bring up some problems such as the monster roars and bangs on the door, but perhaps that's all just the imagination of a child processing these feelings. After all, Embry is a child. But all in all, it's up to you to decide what this game means to you. These are just some of the explanations I found myself. If you like this episode, please subscribe for more scary stuff. And leave your theories down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this game. But anyways, I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.